So I would like to introduce only with names the people who will tell something about them, because it's crucial that they will say a few words about them. So I will start with Teele. I'm still practicing. So it's Teele Pehk, yeah. And first of all, she's a great urbanist, and she's an urban enthusiast. And she's moreover general director of the Cooperation Assembly. And as you can see, she's on my right. And moreover, we have Osamu Okamura, and he's really well-known architect, but not only, he's also director of this rewitalizacja festival. If you haven't heard, it's really, you should read about it and maybe join it, because that's a great festival in Prague and it's worth visiting, it's worth our attention. And as least but not last, we have main director of this Polish institute, institute of one of the famous writer, Adam Mickiewicz, Paweł Potoroczyn. And now it's time, the floor is yours, so we will start with the short introductions and then with the main topic. And as you've read in the program, the topic, the issue that we are going to discuss is culture and revitalization of the modern cities. But as you will see, we will switch a little bit because we have some different concepts that we would like to show you.
I'm coming from Prague. You know, Prague has a fame of being a beautiful city, and this image is somehow, I would say, the marketing image for the city. And it seems like it's a perfect city. It's not. It was not built in 100 years' time, which was very fast and I would say very rational kind of way. It grew organically for hundreds of years. And in I would say, discussion of all the residents, and that's why it looks so complex. And it might suggest kind of a thought that through this process there shouldn't be any mistake, because it's just was such a long and detailed process that it was everything was negotiated in the States, and that's why the conversation is so beautiful and everything is so much. But it's not actually the truth, because not only the city evolves, but also the society and culture evolves, and we definitely have different lifestyle and different demands on what we inherited from our ancestors. So we have a lot of industrial buildings like the one we are sitting in that lost their purpose, and of course many of these houses you see are actually completely morally outdated somehow. We thought that there is not much discussion about the city at the beginning, you know, because everything is governed from the top by the city government, and everything quite somehow works. Everyone was doing his own job and living own happy small life. But then we found out it's not for granted. In the year 2002, suddenly big flood came to the city of Prague, and everything turned upside down from one day to another. And I think that it's a kind of a moment that we started to think about the city completely different way. We found out that one thing is the materiality that seems to be there forever. This is the metro system that was completely flooded for about 1 year and was out of operation. You can imagine in a city 1.5 million with the population of 500,000, it was complete disaster. And I got pickpocketed in the tram because it was so crowded, you know. So it was like kind of collapse of everything, like transportation, security, organization. But then the little miracle happened. The people started to collaborate. This is the moment when the people were building the barriers to protect themselves from the flood. And since then, the spirit of the people completely changed. And that's actually where we started. Very often you have to touch the very bottom to start to reconceptualize your life. And we can speak about tons of other problems we have, and the discussion only started then, from the spill of the suburbs to ghettoization, social stratification, gentrification, all these things that sound so scientific and are so far away from daily life as we discuss it. Of course, we have problem of aging population, deterioration of public space, and so on and so on. It became a wider topic. The quality of life in the city became a wider topic in general media gradually. Not enough street furniture in Prague. You cannot use the space. The opponent of your shopping center hanged himself, and etc. Something that I will see till the end of my life being the designer of that center. And then ultimately we found out that all the planning tools we are using today are somehow outdated already, and the urban planning process as such is just too old to cope with all the challenges. And the last big problem we are somehow coping with is, I would say, unprofessionality of city governments in the Czech Republic. Maybe it's also a phenomenon in this post-Soviet kind of space. The corruption tourism, it's a kind of a new phenomenon. There was like a travel agency founded by an entrepreneur who is just taking people around the corruption monuments in Prague. I took the tour and we walked just one block in downtown Prague, and it took us 1 hour to walk just one block with all the corruption stories that were connected with that one block. Actually, it was quite significant that the one block was the block where the town hall is sitting. We have a lot of very special problems that are connected with Eastern Europe. We have blocks, we have these, I think, it might be also the case of many Polish cities, these modernist cities that are quite monofunctional and are facing kind of physical, the moment of limits of the physical life. So from some small interventions and that started on the completely bottom up at the end, through some urban interventions by architects, we got quite recently to the discussion about the programming. So the architects always tend to design and make something physical, but sometimes not doing physical things, but leaving space for others could be also very important. We are speaking on so-called soft spaces, spaces where you can basically do whatever you want if you are active and you have some good idea. So we are trying to take barriers, take them down so that everybody could join. It's kind of a low threshold city. Many informal forums on discussion on city started since then. You can see the Archivar in Katowice, for example. Unfortunately, it's closed already. But in the transition period, it was quite important. There is a Stanica in Žilina or Kek in Budapest. The spaces that somehow squatted old empty buildings and started to bring people to create something new and innovate. Somehow the connection between the bottom up and top down somehow happened. But we felt this year that we got a little bit distracted from actually the public space, because we got somehow enclosed in a conference hall like this and with specialists only, and we felt like we are not really feeling comfortable, and that was not exactly the joy we had at the very beginning when we started to do things. We are conceptualizing ourselves now. We developed a new theme, the shared city. This is our new format. This is a discussion we did in the middle of a historical square, Charles Square, in a park. We invited Enrique Peñalosa, mayor of Bogota, and we discussed the public space and transportation solutions. He actually got a bicycle. He was riding a bike around Prague for 2 days, and he did a very good analysis of Prague problems. So this was kind of for us important that the people are not just coming by the airplane, dropping their wise ideas and leaving again, but that we establish some interesting interactions and cooperations, and also anybody from the street could come and join this picnic of ideas and discuss with us. We want to be more collaborative and just to make the city livable and interesting, but still we have sometimes more questions than answers. The miast architect was 2 years ago at our conference. He's asking the right question: what can architecture and urbanism do for Europe? And it's a big question, because it's not only about architecture and urbanism, of course. So we are asking, how can we catalyze a 21st century city? It's a very complex task. We are bringing people like James Corner, who's the landscape designer for the Highline Park in New York, and we are actually looking at his projects very critically as well. And Alfredo Berlenburg, he had just such a fight with him over the overall social, I would say, sustainability of his project. We brought crazy mayors like Jon Gnarr, the coolest mayor in the world, as he is using this title sometimes. And it was really challenging for us to discuss what it means to get involved in public matters. He said that for him it's a matter of love, that love is not talking, love is acting. Yeah, that's why he took this job, and maybe that's what we want to reconnect with. We believe that cities needs to be more cool, yeah, and be more competitive. And of course, the young generation is the infinite resource. What Łódź has are the people, and without its people or people leaving Łódź, this city has no future. And especially cities that were based on one industry, like textile, or Detroit was based on the car industry. It's a very difficult task, and it may fail. It's important to be prepared for that. We are trying to act in very diverse fields like education. We are cooperating with universities and discussing design and urban issues with them. We are doing public workshops. This is in Belgrade, for example, with design school students. We designed the biking rack. It's very difficult to discuss about cycling agenda and what it all does. But when you are doing a workshop about the biking rack or biking kiosk, suddenly all these discussions happen very natural way, and it's a great way how to educate. We consult municipalities, in this case the development strategy for city of Kiev in Ukraine, and we of course trying to lecture sometimes. We are not really perfect in that. What we are really trying is to bridge the gap between design, policy, finance, and community. So it's about networking people from very diverse disciplines. And we think that these very actual topics we are actually discussing this year, it's sharing. We don't have infinite resources except of the people, but the material resources are quite scarce and limited, and we have to use wiser what we already have. We cannot expand forever, and still we have so many unused capacities within our cities. You have so many empty lots in downtown Łódź, and it's why to expand more, try to be smarter. Yeah, so we think that we believe also that new social networks and new communication technologies and so on can help in cooperation of people, and the social equality is definitely one of our key topics, and actually by the United Nations it was proclaimed as the main agenda in the near future for whole Europe. At the end, I just want to mention only one thing, that is the direct impact we had in Prague on the basis of discussions at the conference and festival. Some interesting urban planners from United States were invited and hired by the city of Prague. Basically, it's kind of very interesting situation for us that American urban planners are starting to plan parts of Prague. We co-organized as resiTE the workshop with the city, and now we had the second workshop. It's actually the biggest development area in downtown Prague, so-called Praha Bubny, and we brought very interesting specialists from different fields, and we are trying to brainstorm about how to make things differently and involve all the stakeholders in these discussions. It became quite a political topic also, urban planning. It's quite new for Czechs that the urban planning is the center of election kind of campaigns on billboards, and sometimes we also still, even we came from the street to the, I would say, upper levels of the politics. We have to come back to the street again. Sometimes we have to demonstrate also in front of the city hall when there are things that are not working well and communication got stuck. We just organize public meetings and discuss. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm next. Is it okay if I stand here? So I'm Teele Pehk from Estonia, Estonian urbanist based in Tallinn. And everything Osamu said about Central Eastern European cities also applies to Tallinn, of course. And it's a nice coincidence that we also have this corruption tour organized by one political and social group of actors. And the topic is even more relevant because the current mayor of Tallinn is currently arrested, and there is an investigation because of some corruptive issues against him. So thank God, finally, because he is a power-obsessed mayor and not considering what's good for Tallinn or the urban space for Tallinners. So it was a public secret that he is corrupted, but finally they have some proof now. But I will give a shorter presentation, and I will introduce what I do or what I have been involved, and then you also see what's happening in Tallinn. You get the picture, and also how I perceive revitalizing cities and active urban culture, basically. And I start from very personal, what's really close to my heart, although everything I present is, but let's say so, what is close to my home. So from my free time activities. This is a beach very close to my home in the center of Tallinn, 5-minute walk from the old town, where the boats or the harbor from between Helsinki and Tallinn is. And it's a self-initiated beach that I have been involved in protecting, maintaining, cleaning, revitalizing for over 5 years already. This is a sauna party we organized 2012, perfect spot for a public sauna. So we did it in row, several years. But the problem is that it's a development area. Is there? So the beach is here. Old Town is here. And this is the plan for the development for the whole area. The detailed plan has been processed for more than 12 years. It's a huge development saga. The business plan is outdated, and the developer just wants to push it through, doesn't care about the local interests or the community interest, or then the city is very spineless in that sense as well. But we don't care. We have me and my friends and the local neighborhood association as well have organized different events and have shown the alternative use of that space, actually of only that coastline, not the whole development area. We're not against the residential development because it is private land. Like in many Central Eastern European cities, most of the land is privatized. So we've organized beach parties, people are using the place very actively. We've organized big bonfire evenings and tested different saunas there. And concerning the detail plan, we just had recently another public discussion in quotation marks, because nobody's discussing there anything actually. But what is interesting is that the discussion was happening not in city premises, but in Tallinn power plant, exactly similar place like this here, former power plant that is turned into a cultural hub and owned by the city. So there are some improvements already that, and this is very close to the beach also, so that was the purpose. So more people could participate and there was more space and air and everything. Then moving on to a bit higher level, but still in Tallinn. Tallinn is famous for active neighborhoods. There are more than 23 neighborhood associations, NGOs, formed around a certain neighborhood or district. They usually define the area themselves. Voluntary people willing to improve their neighborhood, either they are actively participating in planning or they are revitalizing the public space, organizing some events there, or they are more dealing with maybe social work, helping the poorer or not protected ones in the area. And they are quite much all around Tallinn, except the big panel house districts, which are the lighter gray areas there. But what we did with my organization, the Estonian Urban Lab, back in 2013, is that we gathered all those neighborhood associations and we tried to empower them in the sense, like in a relationship with the city government also, because it's very difficult actually to collaborate with Tallinn city government. There are like very big metal doors between these two groups, but we try to do it in a proactive way. So like, okay, let's stop the time and let's agree on our collaboration values or common values with the city government and different officials. So we drafted actually this like good collaboration pact. And it was a one-year project. It ended with that we announced that, okay, from our side, this good collaboration pact is ready. So what are you doing now, City of Tallinn? They were like, nothing. But still, it was a very important kind of engagement, and it was connected around the local elections. So basically, we were doing the campaign for neighborhood associations, like raising awareness that there are these kind of groups in Tallinn. And so anyhow, it was a really good thing to do. And some pictures of what the neighborhood associations are doing, they are very like on the streets all the time, either organizing street festivals, which is already a trademark of Tallinn neighborhood associations, like all around the year, somewhere, a small or big street festival is happening, organized by these local enthusiasts. Long dinner tables on the streets, like traffic is stopped for that weekend, and then these like fairs, selling your like home cafes, courtyard cafes, baby pram ride that I organized to mark one street as a potential pedestrian street, and of course these cleaning events. Like maybe you've heard about this Let's Do It initiative, which is from Estonia. So we clean, how you say, the talka, when people come together, and then we clean not our home yard, but whatever place is needed to clean in our neighborhood. And because we think, or we try to promote this neighborhood activism of Tallinn also outside Tallinn. So we presented, we did a very short movie. You can find it on YouTube with this Tallinn neighborhood enthusiasts as the experts of local life. And we presented it to the World Cities Day challenge last year, organized by Guardian and UN Habitat. We didn't win, but it was considered as the funniest entry in that challenge. There's an irony in that video, so you have a look. And I'm glad to say now that when I showed the map of active neighborhoods, that the Soviet time block housing districts, that they didn't have any kind of activism in 2013, but 2014, at the Estonian Urban Lab, we wrote a project and initiated this kind of small neighborhood activism in Lasnamäe, the biggest panel house district. It's called the second biggest city in Estonia, because Tallinn's population is 430,000. Lasnamäe inhabits 140,000 people, and the second biggest town actually in Estonia is only 100,000. So Lasnamäe is the second biggest in Estonia, as a joke. And very simple things we did there. Picnic, just put some tables up, announce that, hey, come out, come play chess, or just bring your food here, or just have fun, and some lectures about how to be more active in your neighborhood. Then next step was to paint a stairway. It's next to a small shopping center. And it was also a very good engagement project, because families were passing and like, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I also grab a brush and I also want to participate. And it's very visible also, so it's always like about public space. Then coming to the Estonian Urban Lab, and in general, what else do? Is we do all kinds of things. We conceptualize different, like resites as well, like conceptualize different trends or developments. We try to bring in new things to Estonia, I don't know, shared economy or shared cities, thoughts, temporary use, and these kind of things. We have had radio shows. We are organizing urban walks, and these are not architecture walks. These are more about processes, about the past, about the present, about the future, and also always adding our own opinions there. And recently what I was involved was the call for ideas for the central seaside of Tallinn, because the central seaside is it's like under development. It's a lot of wastelands or a lot of abandoned buildings there, and the connection, Tallinners don't feel that they are living in a sea city. That's the problem. And the central seaside is in the worst shape. So actually this idea came out from this Kalarand beach that, okay, we're all the time like reacting and protesting, but what if we do something proactive? What if we step ahead and try to actually map the seaside use or the wishes and dreams of Tallinners and also visitors of Tallinn? What would they like to do? So this July and August, we gathered more than 500 ideas. It was a very simple formula, just like what if here would be, type in what, so that could do what. So nothing else. So as easy as it could be. And now we are communicating the results to the landowners, to the city planning department, transportation department, different museums or different actors who are at the seaside, and they each use their ideas in future developments or just temporary use of space as well. Then concerning the community development scheme, like from the neighborhood associations, we at the Estonian Urban Lab, we got more interested also, like what's the general context of communities in Estonia, also rural communities, not just urban. And we conducted this kind of very simple survey to map the current situation. We have the leaflet in English, but the survey was in Estonian, and the outcomes were not that optimistic, that very few actually have connection with local authorities, local governments, or the main form of collaboration is receiving money. But I don't call that collaboration. So out of that, we are now planning new activities, and already under my new employer, which is the Estonian Cooperation Assembly, which is like foundation founded by the President of Estonia, and dealing with complex issues like the public sector reform or pension reform. And under this public sector reform or state reform, we are now continuing with the topic of community development, but from the viewpoint that how can local governments and local inhabitants, local residents, or local NGOs, or whoever groups they are active, how can they collaborate in solving problems that are there? Even, say, the refugee problem. This is the refugee center in Vau, very small village in Estonia, and our prime minister, very young, he's my age, he's greeting them, or whatever, talking to them there. So this kind of local level collaboration, how can that, say, solve the immigrant problem, or how can the local people contribute to welcoming these refugees to Estonia and introducing them Estonian culture? But it's not only about this refugee topic, it's also about spatial planning, I don't know, local cultural field or whatever. So this is the work ahead. So thank you.
Dobry wieczór. I'm not an architect. I'm not an urban planner. I'm a culture professional. And so I won't address any issues or challenges my colleagues are facing. I will simply throw a few questions. Namely, if we are to revitalize, reinvent our cities, for whom are we doing it? Revitalization being fundamentally different than renovation, which I'm sure you will elaborate on somewhat further. It's a process that might take up to a generation. Well, the next question is, what is generation today? It used to be 20 to 25 years, then 15, then 10. Probably now this is the generation is between new models of iPhone. iPhone 5, iPhone 6. There are two different generations of kids. So for whom are we to revitalize our cities? Are demographers in the audience? Anyone familiar with sociology, demography? All right, let's start from the beginning. In English, those generations are called, the oldest one, the post-war, first post-war generation was called swing generation. The next one was called baby boomers. I'm afraid that translators, interpreters might have a slight problem translating into Polish because there is no Polish equivalence for those terms. So swing generation, baby boom generation, then generation X, generation Y, known as millennials, and generation Z. Millennials, they rule this world pretty much right now. They're in their mid-30s and controlling roughly 80% of disposable income of this world. But what I'm to focus on is Generation Z, also known as screenagers, because they are glued to all kinds of screens. They are capable of working 5 screens simultaneously. They're also known as knowners. This term comes from the word owners, posiadacze, with an N at the beginning, knowners, nieposiadacze. Who are those kids? They're born roughly between 95 and 2005, between 2000 and 2005, and they're not digital nomads as my generation is. They're digital natives. They don't know the world without the internet. They don't even believe, in many cases, that such world existed. So they're completely digital. They have different spending patterns. They have different habits. Let me tell you one thing. This huge company, 400,000 employees around the world, IBM Consulting, in their database, in their knowledge base actually, they have 1,500 documents, surveys, researches, polls, in-depth insights only on Generation Z, because they know that in next 20 to 25 years, we will face a phenomenon that never occurred in the written history of humankind. Namely, this generation will amount to a 50%, half of the population of the world. Usually the population is divided between 4 groups: old people, adult people, young people, kids. 20 to 30% each group. First time in written history of humankind, one group will amount to 50% of the world's population and will control 95% of its disposable income. How their spending patterns, how their habits, how their virtues, because they have virtues, how will it affect our cities, or how we should restructure our cities, how should we revitalize how we should prepare our cities for them. From my point of view, the critical question is, what should we do for them to participate actively or proactively participate in cultural lives of the cities? Should we let them stick glued to their screens, or maybe we could drag them outside to public spaces? And what I expect from, not necessarily from this panel, but from urban planners, architects, thinkers, culture professionals, is to answer the question, what happened with cultural life of our city? What brings people to cities? Cultural participation is usually the third motive. First is work, second is housing, third is cultural participation, participation in cultural life. We know from recent surveys that Generation Z, they are very eager to go back, not just to towns, to cities, but to the downtowns, to centers of our cities. That's their fun. That's where they think the true life is. So how culture industry, how my sector, how my business, how should we collaborate with you, and on what topics, in what capacity, and to what extent, to prepare our cities for these newcomers, because they will rule the world as we know it. And of course, I do have a hypothesis what should happen. Very simple things. In Seoul, Korea, they build apartments, flats, very small flats, with no kitchen in it. Because they know that Generation Z is obsessed with food, but unlike millennials, they don't cook. They eat out. So you can see huge towering apartment buildings in Seoul, Korea, with not even a niche for kitchen. Not even a microwave, a pot to make it. Yeah. They eat only outside. We know that what millennials introduced as shared economy will be a fact, not just en vogue or stylish trend. This is going to be a fact that for Generation Z, for screenagers, would be an absolute normal thing. How will it affect our cities? And so on and so on. Those questions, I could probably go for the questions like this for another hour or so. I don't want to keep you that long. But I think culture professionals, like myself and some people in my organization, we should be working in very close collaboration with you guys. Otherwise, we might lose yet another generation as proactive consumer of all things cultural. And that's of a serious concern, because cities are culture, and culture is city.
Okay, so to sum up the first part, I would say that flat, it's the answer, and I'm still stick to the picture that it has been shown by you. So we have to create spaces for the people, but people are passive and they don't want to be involved, and they were involved, but of course it's natural disaster is not the answer. But the truth is that we have to take people outside and create, on one hand, when we create a space for them, they will create the space, they will rearrange the space for themselves. It's a kind of circle that it has to be it has to be run, because nowadays we are still not involved. That's our case, that we are learning. We are in the middle of this process of being active, of being involved, of participate in some social events, but we are still far away from taking responsibility. And as you've mentioned about this active neighborhood, that's something I was wondering about this campaign. In what way have you encouraged people to take part? What kind of campaign? Of course, I understand, I assume that the brilliant films, funny jokes, that's having sense of humor, that's, I think, crucial. However, how have you done it? How have you taken people outside? In what way? With some actions, posters, films?
I think the crucial thing is not to do for the people, but to motivate people to, let them know or let them feel that, okay, they need to do it. They need to get out and, I don't know, clean the backyard or whatever area, or build a swing together with their neighbors, or what is like cute. So this is how we did it, because we have the players, we have the active neighborhood, so we kind of discussed together that, okay, what are the strengths of these neighborhood associations, what are the weaknesses, what could be improved, and then we also shared gave some new tools, like how to, but it's a simple thing, yeah, it's for screenagers, or in the age of screens, it's like a simple suggestion is put up posters, put them on bus stops, put them on railway stops, put them in the shops, like where people actually go, where they spend their time, about the street festival or whatever, especially if you want to attract a bit older generation, or maybe Russian speakers in Tallinn context. So like simple things. But I'm lucky, like continuing your talk, I'm happy also, I just recently read that the generation who is now becoming grown up is, like all over the world, is more prone to actually saving the world, not earning benefit or like earning own income. So it's called effective altruism. So if they see that there's some kind of social impact, larger impact of a good initiative or good thing, they are very eager to support it. So this is also a very, very positive trend. And this is, I see it evolving in Tallinn as well. Like you mentioned that here, Polish people are not that collaborative or participatory yet, but I think it's coming here anytime.
I just wanted to add that there is 50 basic features, characteristics of millennials. If I go to list all of them, it will go for an hour. So that's why it's key that their social responsiveness and responsibility and awareness and their very strong inclination to advocacy. And they're using social media not for narcissistic purposes. They're using it for true social good.
And I have a social experiment with my own neighbors. I live in the very center of Tallinn, close to the sea. I have maybe 12 neighbors, like 12 apartments in my house, and kids are very good engines or sparks of change, because I have 2 kids, and I don't want to hire, a babysitter from the other end of the city. So I slowly started to get to know our neighbors more. Like, hey, you also have like same age kid. What if they play together? And first, of course, we were also like, parents accompanying them. Now, like, it's a weekend and we have knock, 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 and sometimes they even don't knock. So kids are already, it's like a small community in our house. And this is the start, I see. Next we will share cars, then we will, I don't know, develop a new house together or something if we like school together, yeah, kindergarten, whatever.
It's perfect.
So start from your very personal level, from personal needs.
Yeah, we should start with us, with our projects, I suppose.
Yeah, I have an experience that it's necessary to approach this the youngest generation with the tools they are basically used to. And for us, there is still like the material world and then the virtual or like new communication technologies, but for them it's just one continuous space. So it's not, there is not such a divide, and we are now trying to take advantage of this and actually to try to take a benefit from the very special skills this generation has. It's the search in information, I would say the ability to communicate very fast, and we designed first a hackathon in Prague this year that actually was very popular, and the hackathon is, I don't know if you ever heard about hackathon, it's probably yes, it's the hacking marathon. Yeah, hacking marathon. So hacking is, you are just kind of using the data and you are trying to somehow derive something interesting from the data and interpret them in a way that it could be used some other way. And it was connected with piracy as well in the past, but it can be also used for the good. And many cities today are just fighting to get attention of IT communities, of the youngest generation, to make them to operate on their own data, to use them for the benefit of the public. And I think actually Helsinki is very, very progressive in it. I believe Tallinn is very, very computer literal or intelligent as well. In Prague, only this April, the first data sets of the city of Prague were opened. It means opened, it means published on the website of the Institute of Planning and Development. And you can find there also statistical data, but you can find also real-time geodata. You can find where the buses are at that very special moment in the city, and you can build applications on that data. So it creates kind of a new business opportunities for these young entrepreneurs and IT developers. So there are people who are like 15 years old and they are already selling their applications to the world and becoming very, very successful. And in the same time, the city and its inhabitants actually profit from this because it helps them to navigate through the city more efficiently, to have better access to information about the city, where what is located where like void or empty spaces that could be rented as well. And so the information, it's actually the biggest resource today, I would say next to the people. So first, I would say resource is the people or citizens, and second is the data and information, because in the future, the information would be much more valuable, or it's becoming more valuable than natural resources. And I would say the extracting the right information, extracting from the vast cloud of data we are surrounded with, it's really a big task, and it needs a lot of thinking how to extract something what makes sense and could be used positively. So I think this very special intelligence of the youngest generation is, I think, something you are speaking of the science fictions. You know the Neuromancer, maybe by Gibson. That was exactly the novel about a guy who was able to see the right data in a like endless field, of data flow, and I think this capability to somehow have this intelligence for in this world that is kind of flooded is important. Yeah.
Can I add? I think a big question is also how to use the open data and all these application and participatory methods, how to turn the urban governance towards that shift that these things are already like showing or illustrating, because the city governments, they are very, very redundant for changing. They are very, very slow, and they have the logic. And in Estonia, I see, in addition to corruption, I also see this kind of it's important to process these things correctly, but the content is not important, but the way papers are moved from one table to another or from one file to another, this has become important, and this is absurd. Like, if you think about the whole city and that what is important, that people would stay in there, they would be happy, be healthy, they should feel belonging somewhere, then the city government basically, people can do without that as well. But how to now turn urban governance, all these like top-down and hierarchic systems, so that they would enable this kind of passion of people, like urban activists, neighborhood activists, or culture people, like how to create this like holistic approach that, okay, we have the same goal, that we want to make Uj best place in the world to live. Like how to like guide that kind of vision. I think that's the key.
And actually these mobile devices make it possible to trace the behavior of people in the city. So you can find out, for example, in which times of the day the people are using this tram line, and so on. And then you can actually adjust the system to be more economic, more efficient. In a real time, you just send more tram cars because there is some soccer, something match in that day. And it helps you to be very, very, I would say, accurate about the expenditures at the end. And I quite was positively surprised. I was riding a tram in Łódź, and I didn't have any Polish zloty, and there is this credit card kind of pay machine that we haven't these, and I was just amazed. It was so easy, and I really was excited about the very simple solution that actually the mobile technologies are allowing today.
Makes our life simple. Yeah, as you've mentioned, you both mentioned that the role of the city government is extremely important, especially with implementing new things and introducing them. In our city, we have quite a good case of the civic budget, like the public budget, and it's each year there is amount of money that we, as the citizens of the city, as the inhabitants, we have the right to choose what do we want to spend money on. Of course, all decisions are taken into consideration, so they can't be against the law and rules. But because of that, because of this decision that the city government has decided to start such a thing, people, they are more involved. Now that was this impulse that they started being more responsible for the city, and I think that's quite a good thing for us, because now maybe, I hope so, that we consider our city that it's more ours, that's not someone's city.
Actually, we had the Łódź manager for participation in Prague this spring because we want to learn from Łódź. And in the cooperation with the Polish Institute in Prague, we brought the person to the discussion with Czech mayors to teach them how to make people participate. So the questions you ask me to tell you, we are actually asking you.
That's
so
great.
It's a productive dialogue.
Yeah, that's our small think tank, and we can share our experience or thoughts.
I was amazed. We were told that 170,000 inhabitants of Łódź are actually participating in this participative budgeting in the city, and it's amazing percentage.
That's right. Okay, so of course, talking about culture and the role of culture in revitalization, which is not the same as renovation, and of course, painting one wall, it's even not a renovation, so we should be aware of that, because the word is definitely overused, and it's quite nice equivalent of everything. But yeah, there are some obvious things that they are, I think, not worth mentioning, so that's why we have changed a little bit the way of discussing, because all of lecturers, they have really great experience that they can share with us. And the question is, do you have any questions for them? Of course, you can ask in Polish or in English, it's up to you, or if you speak Czech, for example. You are warmly welcome, Estonian. That's, yeah. So, do you have questions? Hello. Yep.
Dzień dobry, nazywam się Henryka Antczak. Nie jestem z żadnego stowarzyszenia, jestem po prostu łodzianką, ale uczestniczyłam w takich pięknych inicjatywach społecznych jak Festiwal Czterech Kultur, który w Łodzi się odbywa już po raz któryś, nie pamiętam który, ale to nieważne. I podczas tego Festiwalu Czterech Kultur była taka piękna inicjatywa dla dzieci z najbiedniejszej dzielnicy Łodzi, czyli Bałuty. Dzieci te otrzymywały aparaty fotograficzne i fotografowały zdarzenia tego festiwalu. Muszę powiedzieć, że wynik tych prac był zadziwiający. W ostatnim dniu festiwalu te prace zostały pokazane i no dobrze by było, żeby właśnie takie prace gdzieś publikować. Ja nie wiem, co się stało z tymi pracami, ale one są znakomite. Poza tym tutaj też znam działanie pani Podolskiej, która Centrum Dialogu prowadzi. I ona też w związku z, tutaj troszkę z Żydami robiła to, ale też rozdała dzieciom aparaty fotograficzne. I proszę uwierzyć, że te zdjęcia Bałut, które widziałam, były wręcz przerażające. Niektóre bardzo pozytywne, ale to bardzo aktywizuje tych właśnie najmłodszych członków w naszej społeczności. Dziękuję bardzo.
It was even not a question itself, but an opinion very interesting from my point of view concerning the fact that we have a few festivals, like city festivals, and during one of them, it's the Festival of Four Cultures. I've told you about this multicultural pot that it was in the 19th century. So we don't have these communities anymore, but we have some remains. And also there's a festival to commemorate four cultures like Jewish, Russian, etc. And during one of the edition, the children, they were given cameras to show how they see the world around them, and they were deeply involved. They took beautiful pictures, especially that the children that they were chosen for this project, they lived in the poorest part of the city. Now it's in the middle of the process of changing, but it's still a district that is considered as the poorest one and the most dangerous because of its history. Moreover, we have this center of dialogue. It's mostly the dialogue with the Jewish culture, but not only, it's also again it's around four cultures. And also there was another project devoted to these four cultures. And the children, again, different children were given cameras. They could went deeply into the environment and showed their world. And as a lady has mentioned, she has deeply appreciated, and she thinks that it's worth repeating to make people more involved, especially the youngest part of the community, because that's the people that they will stay here or they won't stay here, they will move somewhere.
Lechosław Czołnowski, jestem filmowcem, dokumentalistą. Ja mam pytanie takie natury globalnej, bo jak sobie Państwo radzicie u siebie z politykami, bo najczęściej politycy torpedują inicjatywy obywatelskie, bo boją się, że za chwilę będą niepotrzebni po prostu, dlatego i to jest problem. Myślę jeszcze tutaj w tej Europie Środkowej po prostu naszej i wschodniej, gdzie mieliśmy reżimy totalitarne, więc to dzisiaj te wszystkie grupy polityczne, które startują o władzę, ci ludzie torpedują właśnie inicjatywy obywatelskie, zniechęcają. To, co pani powiedziała o tych procedurach, że tam dokumenty muszą przechodzić 15 lat z pokoju do pokoju.
Jak sobie Państwo z tym radzicie? Bo tutaj w Polsce to też niezbyt dobrze wygląda, ja to znam z autopsji.
Thank you. Very good question. How to deal with it? With humor. The sense of humor is very important. Otherwise, everybody will get heart attack very soon. Then with patience, because these kind of changes, it's like shift of paradigm. So you have to realize that it won't happen overnight, or it won't happen next year even. But I think also the international trends or everything happening around is like we are a one globalized world. So one day or another, like these new things will be absorbed. That's the question now. Will they be absorbed like one-to-one, or will they be absorbed with this like local twist? Or will there be new models, like local models, or new models, mixtures of different governance models, different trends, different urban development visions, and etc., etc. But yeah, it takes time, and I think what I have experienced is that for example, we at the Estonian Urban Lab, we consulted one small town, 6,000 people, very close to Tallinn, like a satellite town, and they wanted to revitalize their center, which is now like warehouses, and there's no center, there's no identity. And we consulted them for almost 2 years in how to design the process and we didn't make a vision for them. We were there to help them to make the vision together with residents, with entrepreneurs, with all different stakeholders. And we noticed that first there was the vice mayor who was our contact person. He was like, yeah, let's show nice pictures to people, some architectural these pictures, and then they can vote either yes or no, bad or good, or nice or ugly. And we were like, we convinced them to do it differently. And then a year later, the vice mayor was saying the same things and telling the same stories and messages that we did. So it was like, we were like, oh, but this is very small level, like small town, and changes maybe are quicker, or then on the other hand maybe slower, because everybody knows each other, they have different rows, double rows. So, but I think sense of humor is always necessary, because you shouldn't take it too seriously. I think this kind of flexibility and also way of experimenting, that you take, I don't know, one goal, for example, the Good Collaboration Pact that we tried to do, it was an experiment. Will we achieve it? Can this be happening or not? And of course, it's always also about our, power of PR and the forces behind, like the way how we do it, like how do we push it through. I think if we wouldn't have stopped, if we would be very stubborn and still, almost 2 years later, still, banging the doors, then maybe we would be in jail. I don't know, not in jail, but we would be totally strangers. Or then, on the other hand, maybe we would have achieved it, like, to sign it or to have this common agreement. So it's always like two-sided. Also, it's not that the city governments are bad and so old-fashioned and everything. Like, it's always two-way relationship.
So the last question, because we are going to finish. Yep.
Hello, Błażej Filanowski. I have some problem. You are working with local communities, and how do you think the rights and the ideas of local communities, how they are important in a sense of the development of whole city? The question is, for example, why the decision of local community can be more important than decision of whole city to do something like that. That's a very big problem because people living there in some place, they have of course right to decide, but for example, from the other hand, there is a right of the whole community as the city, which we said about these politicians, which they stop something, but they represent the whole community of the city. And what is your experience with? Do you find some crashes between this, the vision of the whole city and some vision of local communities, which was not, which was not the same?
It was for me, right? For everyone.
But you can share. I think that both, or even three of you have something to add.
You can add later. The thing in Tallinn is that there is no vision. There are very nice strategies, very nice words on paper, on files, but nobody is following them. That's a problem. The political decisions are like day and night. For example, the neighborhood associations, some communities, they started to draw their own local visions in terms of public space, local services, either private or public, doesn't matter, like shops or hairdressers or whatever is needed in your daily neighborhood. And some of them, they managed to actually present them to we have 8 city part governments in Tallinn, so it's split. So it's like two-level hierarchy, but they don't have real power. They're just there to create more jobs, I guess, in the public sector. But some associations, they manage to get their visions more through, or also to show example like how things can be done. So Tallinn has a long way to go still, but my dream is actually how to create this kind of urban life organism that is not like, okay, we create some tools that you down there can also participate, or if you have a good idea, then there's a channel. No, it shouldn't be like that. It's like, we are all one. We have the same goal. Like, we have different means how to do things, like how to solve fix a street or organize, or bring neighbors together. But like the bigger goal is the same, like how to do all that, and taking into account that we are living in an IT century, and we will have all the opportunities we have. So that's my dream. Once when I will be the mayor of Tallinn, then you can learn from Tallinn.
That's the best solution. Okay, so would you like to add something?
First, I wanted to address this gentleman who criticized politicians. Well, you're a citizen. You can vote. A power of ballot. It's as simple as it gets. With 30 or 40% voters participating in local elections, don't be surprised. The quality of politicians comes from the numbers of people who actually vote. It's a footwork that we all have to do. Then, when it comes to very many issues like corruption, idiocy on many occasions, incompetence, idiocy, lunacy, whatever you call it. Believe me, Generation Z, as far as I know, and I've been studying them quite thoroughly and quite profoundly, they will wipe away political class as we know it. They will become quality leaders, quality members of society. They will actually look at the conditions under which they were raised. In the midst of biggest depression, economic depression of the modern times, they're very entrepreneurial because of it. They also were they were brought up in a different way by better read and better educated parents. They were treated as adults since their childhood. They're very serious, they mean business. And believe me, when they become a lead of this society, that nation or other nation, they will wipe away the politicians and bureaucrats as we know them.
And I definitely agree with Teele and Pavel. This is definitely the moment when there is no real, I would say, divide between the government and the people. And there is no, we don't have such a luxury to make this divide even. Maybe the divide is just old and it only survives because of the old generation. But the problems that we are facing now are quite big, and I think it will need a really, it's challenge for all of us, and basically out of some kind of discontent from the current situation, as I can see also in between the younger generation, the changes happen because you definitely can change things, and you can do it very effectively and easily. And basically many of people of our generation who were active in the public sphere, we now got to the places where we never imagined we would find ourselves, and we have a chance to change cities now, and as consultants or members of diverse bodies that have a decision-making kind of rights. And so I definitely believe that all of you who want that you see yourself in Łódź in the future, and you have some vision for the city or staying in the city, that you just start, and you are basically already doing it, shape it yourself. And even by being at this conference that is so old school in a way, you are already changing the Łódź, because you are showing that you have interest in public things, and probably you are the next generation of people who will be very vital. And the cities really compete today, and people vote not only in elections, but they vote with their feet, and the people can leave, and it's so easy to leave for Warsaw or for other places or for Berlin or whatever place that is quite cheap and friendly and has abundant opportunities and a lot of young people and creative potential, and you are not really in jail here. So that's a really turning point. Some cities just die out, and some people thrive and flourish, and it's only on you what will happen and where you see your future. And so this is, I think, very crucial, yeah. And it's maybe I wouldn't be sad if some city would just disappear, but I think it's always very sensitive when it's our city. If it's the other city, it's okay, but if it's our city, it's a very yes. That's exactly the point, that there is a lot of emotions connected with the place where we live, and we. Yeah.
But I think Łódź has a great opportunity. In the morning we heard the great revitalization plans for the center of Łódź, which is quite an area. But what I suggested was more flexibility, that now the approach seems to be, let's fix everything like this. It's ready already, but it's all gated and guarded, and it feels like you're not welcome here. But why the hell are not different kind of initiatives let in here, or that people would get to know this place, because that's crucial. If people are not used to come here, and as I understood, this was closed area when it was power plant and then empty, then yeah, but still it's under renovation. In Helsinki there are places there's nothing, there's just soil, and different kind of culture groups are allowed there. The city says that, oh, you don't need any permit, like public event permit, just go there and do, because they have realized that, okay, That's a problem when you fix everything, you invest huge amounts, and then like, cuckoo, where are all the people? Then it's too late already. Then you really need to hire very expensive market experts or whoever, how to drag people. And Leipzig in Germany is a good example in that, because it was a shrinking city 10, 15 years ago, and then a lot of empty premises, empty flats, houses were left, like 60,000, I think. A lot of people went to Berlin, but also outside Germany. And there was a group of, I think also architects, who started this, forgot the name now, but anyhow, like revitalizing empty spaces initiative, and giving empty spaces to like, cultural actors or people in need of workspace, workshop places, or living space. And they are so successful now, and there are so many different initiatives in other spheres in Leipzig as well. And what is very cool is that they are collaborating so well that Leipzig has reached a new level, because this kind of experimenting has become the motto. It's like Leipziger Freiheit. The freedom of Leipzig is that you can test something. If you fail, nobody will punish you or kick you out. Like, it's okay. This is like in the code already. So I really like that kind of attitude. And now Leipzig is not a shrinking, but a growing city. So they have totally turned it around. Maybe Woods has something to learn from Leipzig.
There is actually one point that is somehow proved by studying many American cities. Don't invest first in buildings, invest in people, and then the rest will come. If you invest only in buildings, it's dangerous. Yeah. You
should invest in streets, because it's very muddy.
Okay.
To the way.
But investment in people, that's the perfect final statement, and I'm sure that we have to finish now. So it was great for me. That's my private pleasure to host you here. It's good. So thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your questions. Hope to see you again, because first steps are taken here. So I'm very glad to see you, the audience and our guests. Thank you once again.